Hello, bonjour, and welcome to your new Bonheur Private Wines video. Let me introduce you to your new quarterly wine collection, and as we love to do, as I personally particularly love to do, we're taking you to an exploration of the wine wonders France produces. We are essentially taking you touring gastronomically all around the country to 6 different wine regions, famous ones at that. I configured an itinerary on Google Maps. If you were to travel to the 6 small producers that we're going to meet today, it would take you nearly 16 hours to do so just for the driving in a car, way more in an RV, let alone riding a bicycle, to cover more than 1,500 kilometers or 950 miles. This French collection is basically a solid week's vacation. It's worth a solid week's vacation across the most beautiful vineyard landscapes on earth. A Tour de France of wine tasting. Way less painful than pedaling though, I'll tell you that. Instead, let's go and lift some liquid heavyweights. And we're starting our Tour de France in the beautiful Loire Valley on the western side of the country, southwest of Paris, towards the Atlantic Ocean, along the meandering longest river in France, the Loire Valley River, or the Loire River. Here lives a famous wine appellation, very traditional, where they've been making wine for centuries on a rare limestone terroir surrounding the stunning fortified castle and city called Chinon, which is literally built on a massive calcareous rock. Here, a couple of passionate wine growers, Odile and Jean-Max Manceau, married couple, manage the small Domaine de Noiré, that's the name of the winery, making exclusively organic wines. His family has been growing vines for generations. Their philosophy, I quote, delivering expressive wines representative and truthful to the place they were born. Sure, they live on an exceptional terroir, you just need to reveal its full potential, and they do so respecting their surroundings. This specific wine is called Caractère, so character, is made from their oldest vineyards, their best plots, a 100% Cabernet Franc, the flagship red wine from the winery, and flagship red wine from the Loire, aged for a year in large oak barrels to infuse just the right amount of oaky tones, not too much, just enough to respect the fruit and add a bit of complexity. Let's find out. Now this is a Loire Valley wine with an absolutely gorgeous color. It's so vibrantly red. It's dark but not too dark, because Cabernet Franc is not hugely dense a wine, so you can really see the shiny red and enjoy it. It doesn't look evolved that much for a 6-year-old wine. It's not purple, it's not orange either, like an old wine would be. It's just gorgeous, pure, shiny red. Let's sniff. Yum, delicious. On the nose you may find that it's quite meaty at first. Yeah, like cured meat or prosciutto if you smell it just after opening the bottle. So it means it needs a bit of aeration, so aerate a little before serving or open the bottle about 2 hours prior. Once it's enough oxygenated, once it's breathed a little bit, you will enjoy how floral this wine actually is. It's the magic of Cabernet Franc. Powerful notes of red and purple flowers like rose petals, violet flowers are truly spectacular and dominant to the nose. There's really nice spiciness as well from freshly ground green and black pepper. For the fruits, it's fresh berries, the blueberries, red berry and some ripe blackberries as well in there. Really harmonious aromatic profile, I would say, a potpourri of natural products, the flowers, the fresh berries, the fresh herbs, peppermints and spices. Really gorgeous to smell. Let's taste. Yum, yum, terrific. The palate is also gorgeously fresh. It just feels and tastes like you'd mixed various fresh berries, added some fresh flower petals and herbs and spices and put all of that in a blender or a centrifuge to extract all their essence and goodness. It's so packed full of concentrated flavors. The freshness and spices just superb. The acidity is also vibrant. No heavy, overripe fruits in there whatsoever. The tannins have just the right amount of grip to be going well, pairing well with food, but the overall texture is very soft. However, you will feel in the finish how textural this wine is, with an aftertaste of cocoa and a bit of nutmeg, which I adore, and that comes with the soft granulosity that you find in a fine dark chocolate. I simply love it, and it makes me want to pair it with a charcuterie board or a cheese platter so bad. That would be so perfect. It's still so vibrant after 6 years of aging that it promises to evolve for a very long time. Still probably another 10 to 15 years, but it is perfect now, already matured enough for you to be polished and spectacular. Enjoy. Let's go now to the delightful south of France, shall we? We are not taking the shortest route today between the wineries for this presentation, so we're probably going to cover 2,000 plus miles in fact, as we're now going south in the sunny Provence, a region famous for its joie de vivre on the Mediterranean coast. In the wine world, Provence is of course renowned for its style of pale and dry rosé wines, but we wanted to bring you and make you discover their reds as well, because like the local people, they are joyful and comforting too. The winery is called Chateau Romanin, is established on an estate with an actual chateau, a real castle. It's not always that a chateau has a castle. This one was built in the 13th century, so about 1,000 years ago, and the estate was one of a local lord back then. Today it is a sizable property, counting with woods and fields of olive trees and of course vineyards surrounding the old chateau. This modern fief was acquired earlier this year, in fact, by a surgeon, Dr. Caroline Sheets, coming from Canada, and is now managed by herself and her husband Stan. All their wines are organic here. The appellation is called Les Baux de Provence, which is a sub-area of the broader Provence. This is their Grand Vin, or their Grand Wine, the one built for serious enjoyment and some ageability. It's a local blend of southern French grapes, Syrah, Mourvèdre and Grenache, the GSM blend as it's known, with a bit of Cabernet Sauvignon here, as it's quite traditional now in Provence for greater complexity and denser tannins. Aged for 18 months in oak vats and oak barrels. It's aged in what is a feature of the property, an underground barrel room cathedral built and designed by a famous architect in 1992. Ooh, this Provence red features a very nice bright color as well, quite dark to the core and really vibrant on the rim. Provence reds aren't super dark or dense, less so than you might expect from the very sunny south of France, because they get quite a lot of cooling influences from the Mediterranean and a lot of wind in the area. So the grapes stay fresh and not too ripe or cooked. But let's smell. Oof, wow, extremely interesting. and quite rare and aromatic profile here. At first, definitely smells of wood more than anything else, from different aromatic species, I would say, like sandalwood combined with a bit of oak and cinnamon sticks. There's a distinct smell of tobacco leaves as well. Truly like smelling a cigar box. Very fine cigars. There's tons of spices as well, like walking through a spice shop on a market, you know, where they have all those huge bags of different spices, the cardamom, the clove and so on. So really captivating to smell it. And on the background, only here are the delicate fruits, the strawberries, raspberries on the background. Very, very tempting and intriguing. But let's dig in. Oh, so nice, so very nice. You see, while the nose seemed more spicy and more sandalwoody in its dominant flavor, or aromas, I should say, with the fruits only on the background, it's the total opposite now, completely flipped around image on the palate. It actually starts with the fruit, and it's really pungent right there. You get a big burst of powerful and very ripe strawberry and blackberries, almost like a jammy mixed berries, coulis or jam, also caramelized fruits, very, very nice. And then only after that, from the mid palate on, does the huge power of the spices start building up. It starts slow on the nutmeg and around the pepper notes, and it builds up and builds up with more and more power and complexity to deliver a huge mix of varied spices, some oakiness. It's extremely impressive and pleasant, super interesting, and a rare experience with such contrast between the start and the finish. The fruit, an explosion of spices in the end. I also love how the body and the general feel of the wine is easy, somewhat unassuming, so it drinks extremely well and it's easy to quench and enjoy, but at the same time you can taste the immense concentration that submerges you in the aftertaste, the spices, the dark cocoa, the coffee, the cigar flavors, etc. Incredible. I think this is a wine for the main courses, rather to go with rich foods, fine cuts of meats, the traditional stews as well, like a bœuf bourguignon, game meats even, or more, many tasty Italian dishes as well. Not a wine to age much more, but it'll still be great within the next 5 years. Let's stay in the delightful south of France. This time it's so nice here. We're only just moving north some 30 miles, a little more inland from the French Riviera if you wish, to go next to the illustrious Châteauneuf-du-Pape appellation. If you've ever been around there, you would have noticed a landscape feature in the background, the famous Dentelle de Montmirail, which is a line of rocky mountains that is somewhat sacred locally because it's so distinctive and you see it from everywhere around the area. It's somewhat of a symbol of this area if you wish. Well, guess what? This very wine right here is made from a vineyard located directly underneath these rocky cliffs. So really rare. Anybody in the area will tell you, oh, is this the wine that is made right there? Old vines have been living here happily for about 50 years. The winery is called Domaine des Florets. It's a tiny winery, only 12 acres of old vineyards, but both the winery buildings and the spot are simply stunning. It's owned and operated by one man named Jérôme Ratle, who interestingly enough built a 25-year-long career as a consultant advising large French corporations on environmental protection and sustainable development. And one day he decided to become a wine grower in this estate. Needless to say that Jérôme knows a thing or two about how to respect his vineyards and environment and make sustainable viticulture and winemaking. For this, Alliance Wine Alliance, which is my personal favorite from his. He combines the juiciness of Grenache with the structure of Syrah for a harmonious blend. Aged in tanks and oak barrels for 12 months, a combination of both. And of course the wine comes with 100% varnish-free recycled paper label, a natural cork stopper of course, and if you'd buy a case, a 100% recycled cardboard box for total sustainability as well. And we certainly have a wine that looks a lot southern here, more so than the previous one, from the sunny and warm south of France, with this typical big color intensity. It's not as huge or dense and dark as a Malbec would be, but still very solid. Deep dark red color with some delicate youthful purple hues, indicating that it's a young wine. Let's smell. Oh, good lord, there's a ton of chocolate aromas in this glass. Yum! Yeah, it smells like when you first open a fine chocolate bar, you know how you get this intense chocolate smell that is so pleasing, it makes you giggle with anticipation. Well, it's exactly this wine's initial smell. And if you smell the wine a little more, here come the huge burst of fruit intensity followed by the spices. Huge burst of black currants, aromas, really strong cassis, almost like some Chilean wines with their distinctive super intense fruitiness, or almost like a cassis liqueur. It's this intense, but there's of course more vinosity to it, a touch of earthy character as well, black peppery spices, so complex. Man, I'm really in love with the smell of this wine. Could be because, yes, I am quite hungry right now, and it's actually much better to taste when you're hungry. Best way to taste a wine, because you're hungry, so you smell all the intensity. And could be that, but it's also could be that those wines that we've gone through so far are seriously powerfully scented. Let's taste and find out. Oh, beautiful. The flavor intensity is definitely right up there, but it's actually very refined as well, or at least more than I was anticipating. After the nose, I was expecting a huge burst of flavors. It is somewhat explosive, but contained and controlled. This is not just a huge wine, it's a fine wine, a large fine wine, let's say. Essentially, you get a burst of gorgeous red fruit flavors. There's some ripe berry flavors here, really ripe this time, like super sweet strawberries or sweet raspberries, not like the wine is sweet itself, but the flavors are like very ripe berries that would be sweet. So it smells sweet, if you wish, with the warming and comforting feel from the alcohol. A delicious and subtle background of oaky notes, well integrated to this burst of fruit, which is where the chocolate aromas come from. Caramel, toasted hazelnuts, a touch of wood smoke. It's very, very smooth, solid acidity, grapey, enough tannins to be interesting. A wine that is just as good, if not better, than one you'd get or expect from this area next to Châteauneuf-du-Pape, better than many Châteauneuf, in fact, I would say. So intense, really punchy, vibrant and refined at the same time. This is built to age for at least 10 years if you feel so inclined, but it'll be gorgeously fruity and versatile if you want to have it right now. And it can go with tasty dishes, grilled meats, the steaks, generous pasta, etc. Superb. Before we head due west to go to Bordeaux, let's make a detour through the famed Beaujolais wine area located to the east of the country, just in between the French Riviera to the south and Burgundy to the north. It's actually quite close to Burgundy, a region famous for its terroir and local grape named Gamay, delivering a slightly lighter and spicy red, somewhat like Pinot Noir but a little different. Here, let me introduce you to Sylvain Patureaux, a middle-aged man who I actually studied viticulture with at the same time and same university in Bordeaux, and a friend of mine. Sylvain had spent his entire career managing wine estates owned by the government and used for teaching viticulture to young students. Viticulture is so important in France that we have winery schools, if you wish. So after teaching and applying viticulture for 20 years, Sylvain decided to buy his own estate and acquired the small Domaine des Deux Fontaines, the domain of the two fountains, that he took over from a retiring local grower. We're in the Beaujolais cru appellation of Fleurie, named after the village of Fleurie, and sometimes referred to as the Queen of Beaujolais, on hilly terrain, on pink granite soil that gives the wine their distinctive finesse and minerality. This La Presle cuvée, the name of the wine, is Sylvain's flagship wine, named after the place it is from, selected from a single vineyard location, his eldest vines on the steepest slopes, aged for 12 months in French oak barrels. And this is a serious looking wine for a Beaujolais, usually known for its lighter, playful red wines made from Gamay, but this one has a really deep and profound looking aspect, an intense, useful color with hues of purple, which indicates that it's still young, 2022, and fresh. Let's dig into the nose. Yes indeed, as the purple-ish color suggested, we are here with a wine focused on the vibrancy of the fruity flavors. It's zingy and fresh, smelling like a coulis of mixed berries, intense cassis, crisp blueberries, this time some raspberry in there as well. It smells like a berry juice, with surrounded with an intense vinosity as well, that makes it feel not only lively and fruity but deep too. I think there are notes of acacia flowers as well in here. It smells a bit woody but flowery as well, floral I should say, and some notes of fresh wood bark, something like that, a bit earthy. It's quite complex and intriguing, really deep and complex to smell. I could sniff it for many minutes and keep going, but let's move on to the palate. Wow, good God, do I love this wine. It's going to be hard to find the right words, because what comes to my mind right now is that you really have to experience it to understand fully this wine, what it's like, but let's try to describe it nonetheless. It's mainly the incredible crispness and the freshness of the palate that strikes me so much, and that is so pleasing. Such a level of concentration of fresh berries with this level of intensity is very rare. The acidity seems really huge, so vibrant and crisp, but not acidic in any bad way whatsoever. It's just, it underlines the freshness of all these explosive berry flavors that are so vibrant. It's a mixed berry juice again, but concentrated 10 times it seems, without any aggressive feel to it at all. Only the good stuff has been packed in there. On top of that, more towards the finish, develops more and more herbal characters like fresh herbs, basil, oregano, parsley, laurel leaves, and those herbal notes push the intensity further and further to explode literally on the finish. It's so intense and so delicious. So just try it and you'll feel it, I hope. Now this is a young wine, 2-year-old at this stage, hence its youthful fruitiness, but it has so much acidity and such balanced tannins overall. It'll age for at least 10 years. But I taste it now to see if you like it, if you enjoy it, and if you love its magical youth, and then you can stock up a few bottles for later enjoyments, if that's the case. Now let's traverse the country from east to west for our last red of our 2024 collection. Of course, we had to bring you a Bordeaux wine, and we wanted to have you discover an appellation that is quite famous among wine connoisseurs, those who know quite a bit, for its scarcity and quality, and very renowned locally, but perhaps less broadly famed than the neighboring areas of Saint-Emilion and Pomerol because of its small size, namely the appellation of Canon-Fronsac. Those who know, but not everyone knows, like Saint-Emilion Pomerol, which everyone has heard about. We are on the right bank on clay soils and hills overlooking the Dordogne River here. The winery Chateau Tasta is a small family-owned producer owned by the same family for 100 years, the Chevalier family, who has been operating it for 5 generations. Their wines are all organic, with an emphasis on growing healthy vines to give Merlot its purest finesse and expression. This T, the Tasta cuvée, puts an accent on drinkability, minerality, and the juiciness of its blend. 95% Merlot with a touch of Cabernet Franc for added complexity, aged in French oak barrels. And this is a seriously dark looking Bordeaux wine here, nearly black to the core. We have solid color intensity indeed, probably the deepest wine that we've had today. Vibrant red, dark red, especially on the rim, but it's so black to the core I can't see through, and it looks still very useful. Let's smell. Yeah, indeed. This is also the finest smelling wine of the day. Yeah, not that it smells better than all the other wines, but the others were all open, very punchy, very fruity, huge fruit, huge spices, huge chocolate. Here this is a wine that is more introvert, at least to smell at, which is often the case with Bordeaux wine because they're built to age and bloom over a long period of time. Very, very delicate notes of a dark cherry, which is signature Merlot, surrounded by touches of oak, some coffee, some toffee, a little cherry as well, a little smoky char. And it gives a subtle deepening touch, this smoke. Very, very civilized overall, but tempting. Let's dive into the taste. Yes, so nice. Also, this is when you realize that Bordeaux wine style has a style of its own. The delivery of flavors is unique. First, you get these very dense and so fine tannins, fine in the sense that they're very small and very compact. The grains of tannins are very close to one another, which is really characteristic, and you can sense the fine texture in your mouth. Not that many regions and grape combinations can achieve this as well as Bordeaux in the world, especially when it's Merlot on deep clays like it is. Again, something you have to experience it for yourself to understand. Flavors are also delivered with finesse, an elegant cherry liqueur surrounded by graceful oaky spices. The body, the fine texture seem to float on your palate, like levitating on your tongue a bit, which is always a really good sign, extremely good balance. And boy, is the finish intense with the oaky flavors of toasted wood, dark chocolate, coffee, roasted hazelnut, giving you a burst of flavors in the aftertaste and indicating to me that this wine has been aged in high-end oak barrels for quite a while and that it still has some way to go in terms of aging potential. Bordeaux are often built to peak at around 10 years old at least, and this one will go much further, probably 20. A wine made for gastronomy, high-end restaurants and fine dishes. I'd almost love to have it on a white fish. It's so subtle and refined that it could do that, and white meats in general, or fine cut of beef, not something too strong. It'd be top notch on that. Finally, we crossing the country once again, but going a little more north, this time towards Paris, to the Champagne wine region of France. A French collection of ours couldn't be without a fine champagne, sparkling wine, and one that you could certainly not find anywhere or everywhere. We wanted you to discover what is called a grower champagne, made by a small local producer with all the local traditional savoir-faire and know-how, but without the marketing fluff and without the standardized profile that you get from large brands. The champagne Allouchery-Deguerne, I know it'd be a bit hard to pronounce if you're not French, is made by one man, Nicolas Allouchery, the descendant of a family of wine growers. In Champagne, many vineyard owners and vine growers just sell their grapes to the champagne houses that turn them into the brands that you know, which is what Nicolas' family did for decades until 2015, when they decided to make their own sparkling wine themselves with their own grapes instead. They have about 15 acres of vineyards on the Montagne de Reims area, which is a large hill, a mountain of Reims. It's not really a mountain, it's a large hill, next to the capital city of Champagne, which is Reims. This is in a Premier Cru village, meaning that it has a terroir appreciated for the finesse of its Pinot Noir in particular. This selection cuvée is made from 40-year-old vines with a dominance of red grapes, which is not all that usual. 60% of Pinot Noir and 20% of Pinot Meunier, both red grapes, with 20% of white Chardonnay. Champagnes made from predominantly red grapes tend to be a little fruitier and a little juicier, I find, than the ones where Chardonnay is dominant, that are more austere and acidic and mineral. It's fermented in the bottle, of course, matured between 24 and 48 months in the bottle, depending when you buy it, blended using 35% of reserve Solera wines, if you know what this is, for the wine connoisseurs among you, with 10% of the wine matured in oak barrels from Meursault in Burgundy. This is a champagne wine with a nice, bright and shiny color with the lights on the background. It's so shiny, it's lemon, yellow and gold as usual, but you can certainly spot some delicate pinkish hues in their highlighting that it has a dominance of red grapes in the blend, and it makes it look a little different, more luxurious, I would say. Let's smell. I love the refined and subtle brioche aromas that you get at first. A brioche in the morning, it's a little sweet, a little yeasty, a little buttery, it's salivating. And if you sniff harder and deeper, you will get a burst of toasted hazelnut, so a little bit more toasted than the brioche, which I always enjoy deeply. And you might be positively surprised to detect solid aromas of red berries in there. It's not red berries like, you know, the red wines that we've tasted, obviously not as ripe and intense, but there is certainly very delicate notes of crisp raspberries, very subtle, like saying you smell raspberries at 2 or 3 feet away, just a delicate note. Touches of ripe lemon as well, like limoncello, limoncello liqueur, a hint of grapefruit, loads of fruits, when the toasty brioche background makes it very perfect, very elegant to the nose. Let's taste. Wow, this is delicious. Several important things to note here. First, in terms of flavors, you'll find what I've described to the nose, plenty of hazelnut and brioche, the lemon marmalade, some pomegranate as well, grapefruit, citrus, quite a lot of spices as well. Very complex and broad spectrum of flavors. What strikes though is how savory the flavors are. A lot of toasted hazelnut in particular, I've said it a few times, and it's quite earthy as well, like forest floor, a bit like wet earth, which makes sense because it's one of the markers of Pinot Noir. Earthy, like a great Burgundy Pinot Noir when it's aged a little bit. It's got this signature, again, very light in the background, but it's there. Although it's more subtle, of course, than a red Pinot Noir. It's also very dry. You sense hardly any sugar, unlike in many champagnes, way purer and drier, but the body is so oily and textural. You'll see that it doesn't need to have sugar. As a result, you have a champagne that is more mineral, more subtle, more interesting, and reflecting the grapes it was made from way better because there's no artifacts from the sugar. Extremely complex, very smooth and oily. This is a type of champagnes that you'd find served at a high-end restaurant, Michelin-starred type of French restaurant, because they love this style of really dry, elegant champagne because it respects the fine produce and the delicate dishes really well, and because the minerality and the salinity goes really well with any type of fine foods in particular. I love how different it tastes compared to your usual brands of champagnes. It's got its own personality, yet the finesse that we expect from champagne, that you need to have in champagne, but with more personality and character, elegance combined with character. Marvelous. And here you have it, your introduction to your new 2024 French collection from the Bonner Private Wine Partnership. I am used to tasting wines from many different regions, switching from one region to another, from one country to another even, and shifting my brain to analyze and enjoy each grape variety and each local expression of the climate, the soil, or the local traditions, for the unique qualities that each and every wine delivers for what it is. But still, describing this collection to me, putting these 6 wines together in a box, I am still amazed at how you can find surprising gems and incredible wines from totally different parts of the world. And here, how we have wines from often tiny producers, each with their own life stories, some old winemaking families or the newer projects. When you taste each bottle, however, it all makes sense. They're all very precise, they're diverse, they're powerful, they're balanced, they're food friendly. Of course, we select those for that as well. In one word, they are delicious, each in their own unique way. And it's striking, and I hope I have here helped you appreciate it a little more. This is it for me today. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your collection, drink safe and tasty, and I will see you soon in the wonderful world of wine. Cheers.